ברשות מעלת המרת דעתרא הרב אלמלeh בשם ישמרהו האל, ברשות our great doctor מצוין שברופאים John Jack that sponsored today's shiur, and the precious Kahal Kadosh of Oziel, Hechal, Shalom of Surfside. I want you to know, Kahal Kadosh, I am connected primarily to three congregations. My primary congregation where I spend the winter months is in Brooklyn, the Safra Synagogue on Ocean Parkway and Avenue U. I serve as its rabbi. In the summer months, we go to Deal, New Jersey, and I'm the rabbi of the Oziel Yaakov Synagogue on Lawrence Avenue. However, my third affiliation, and no less than the first two that I mentioned, is right here in this Bet Knesset in Surfside. All of you know that when I'm here in Florida, this is where I pray. My kuracha is here. My tefillin is here. And my seat is there. Jack Baruch Hashem prepares it. The tefillin is there and the coffee is there. And I must say, it's a homey synagogue. The people are so warm. Everybody is humble and modest. B'nai Torah, they have one focus. It's not touristy. These are people that are living here permanently, and they have a focus just to study and to grow and to learn. I must say that from all the synagogues, I feel so comfortable and I feel so at home. It's a home away from home, and therefore, to me, it's a great zechut to come in the busiest week of the year, a few days before Rosh Hashana, to address our congregation. Kahal Kadosh. Hacham einav berosho. Shlomo HaMelech says that a wise man, einav, his eyes are in his head, which means the wise man is always looking, he's always observing, he's always seeing, he's very, very cautious. Einav berosho. But Sfat Emet said, the real Hakam, he puts his focus berosho, berosh Hashana, because he knows in the 48 hours, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah affects the 353 days that follow it. Tonight, I came to discuss a strategy of Hakam in order to succeed with good judgment and beracha and prosperity for the coming year. What I'm telling you now is indeed a very, very great secret. And I'll tell you how I came about it. I opened up the Mansour, and I was actually shocked to find that Rosh Hashanah is not only Yom Adin, which to me is consequential enough. I don't think you need to have any other events sharing this great day. However, I found out that Rosh Hashanah actually has a very rich history, and it's the anniversary of many consequential events in Judaism, as the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, page 11. Sarah Imenu, conceived on Rosh Hashanah. Now, that's got to be the most significant birth in history. This is Yitzhak Avinu, the continuity of Abraham. Ki bi Yitzhak yikareh lechazara. And that happens on Rosh Hashanah. No coincidence why the reading of the Sefer Torah on Rosh Hashanah, Hashem pakad et Sarah. That's the anniversary of that event. Gemara says, Rachel Imenu. She was a barren woman. She also conceived on Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara goes along and we say in the Haftarah, she's mentioned. Rachel is mentioned. Kol baraman nishma nihi bechi tamrurim Rachel mevaka al baneha. So Rachel's birth is to Yosef. Yosef is the source of Mashiach ben Yosef. That is going to be the precursor to Mashiach ben David. And therefore, these two events I have no problem with. Incidentally, the Gemara says Hannah also conceived. So if somebody's having issues in fertility, it seems Rosh Hashanah is Mesugal. It's a day that has certain energies in order to help the Akarot. Wonderful. But then I opened the Mahzor, and I'm just reviewing the Tefillot as I do. And it says, Et Yom HaZikaron Hazeh, Et Yom Tov Mikra Kodesh Hazeh, Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. Scratch my head. Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. Pesach, yes, Pesach Zecher Yitzat Mitzrayim, no question. Pesach is, by the way, the holiday that commemorates the Exodus. We have Seder, we have so many mitzvot. Even Sukkot, I'll give it to you. Zecher Yitzat Mitzrayim. So when we came out of Egypt, there was Aranei Kavod. We were surrounded by clouds of glory. I give it to you. Even if you want to tell me Shavuot, because it says in the Mansour on Shavuot, Zeman, Matan, Toratenu, Zecher Yitzat Mitzrayim, I concede. Because after all, when Moshe Rabbeinu met God at the burning bush, God says, 50 days after you leave Egypt, you're coming back to this spot. The snare actually was Har Sinai. And therefore the whole purpose of Exodus was to get back to Har Sinai. So it was already mentioned before we left what the purpose was. So Matan Toratenu, Zecher Yitzat Mitzrayim, I have no problem. But Rosh Hashanah, I mean, there's not enough things going on that we have to throw in now extraneous stuff that seemingly has no connection to the day itself. What in the world does the Exodus have to do with Rosh Hashanah? This was bothering me terribly. So I started to open up the books to see if anybody talks about it. To my delight, I found this. This is a derasha from one of the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Nissim. Rabbeinu Nissim lived maybe 1,000 years ago. The paper looks like it's 1,000 years ago. Look at this writing. He wrote 11 derashot. We have the book, Derashot Haram. These are classic, vintage derashot of the Rishonim. And at the end of his first derash, he says, "V'lachen anu mazkirin tamid b'tfilotenu." We always mention in our prayers, Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim. We always mention it. Gam b'mo'adim she'enam nimshachim im Yitziat Mitzrayim. Even with holidays that are not connected. Kemo Rosh Hashanah. Oh. So I see already he's bothered. He's saying, you're right, Rosh Hashanah, we don't see an apparent connection, but you know what? We mention it anyway. And then he goes on to explain why. Because, listen, we were slaves to Paro. Avadim ayinu. And the Torah says you should never be a slave to a human. God says, Avadayhim, velo avadim la avadim. You're my servants and you should never be subservient to another human. And therefore, anytime we spend a day or two in service to God, it reminds us that we left Mitzrayim, we left Abdut, and now we can serve God. So on Rosh Hashanah, we serve God in prayer, in shofar, but we would not have been able to do that, says the Ran, unless we came out of Mitzrayim. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Avdei Adonai, velo Avdei Paro. So that's a general understanding. The Ran doesn't learn that Yetziat Mitzrayim and Rosh Hashanah are directly connected. He learns it's a general. I mean, listen, you can't be Jewish unless you came out of Egypt. So anytime we do something Jewish, Zecher Yitzat Mitzrayim. That's the opinion of the Ran. Fine. But once I saw this Ran, I started to search if anybody else talks about it. And then I found this. This over here is the Sefer called Shibbolei HaLeket. Shibbolei HaLeket is Rabbi Tzidkiah ben Avraham HaRofeh. He lived in the year 1210. He was one of the chief rabbis in Rome. And he writes a Sefer, Shibbolei HaLeket. And he says the following. Oh, about the Rosh Hashanah, my Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim Ika. He said, what's Zecher Mitzrayim? What are we talking about over here? I'm so glad. I asked the question, I thought I was missing something. And now I see the Rishonim all grappling with this. What's it doing in the Mansour? Baruch Shekimati, it's the same exact question. And he says, listen, I know Sarah conceived, and I know Rachel conceived, and I know Hannah conceived. But maybe you weren't aware, he says. Rosh Hashanah yatsa Yosef membet ha'asurim. Oh. On Rosh Hashanah, Yosef left the prison, which is the precursor of Yetziat Mitzrayim in a microcosm. What happens to Yosef on Rosh Hashanah, he was redeemed, he got free. Remember the story, he was put in the prison. I cannot imagine what that prison looked like 3,500 years ago in Egypt. This was not a country club. This was subterranean, underground, in a board, it says, it was a pit. I don't know the ventilation. They didn't have a softball league in this prison, and they weren't making license plates either. I can only imagine the subhuman conditions that Yosef had to endure, and he was there for more than a decade. And Rosh Hashanah, Paro has a dream. Paro's dream with the cows, the fat cows, the skinny cows. Incidentally, I just read an article that the archaeologists in Egypt found the cows. They found the bones of the cows. It's amazing. But that was a dream. They didn't find anything. That's fine. But the point is, last night I said it in Great Neck. He says, "Oh, unbelievable, unbelievable." Yeah. Can I see pictures? Because it was a dream. They didn't find anything. Anyway, so he has a dream, but he's not satisfied with the interpretations. So Sarah Mashkim, the butler, tells him, there's a great tzaddik in the prison. He's a na'ar. He's a lad, Ivri, Jewish boy, Jew boy, Eved. He doesn't speak so complimentary, not so flattering about Yosef. But nonetheless, Paro says, bring him, maybe he can give me an interpretation. The pasuk says, Vayritzuhu min habor. What does it mean, Vayritzuhu? Vayritzuhu min lashon ratz. They rushed him out. He wasn't expecting it. Over the where are we going? You're free. The king gave you a royal pardon. You'll have a meeting with the king. It was Rosh Hashanah. Yosef says, I'm wearing jail clothes. I didn't shave. The pasuk says, Vaygalah. He took a shave on Rosh Hashanah. Kavod Malchut. So the Rishonim say, maybe Al Yedei Goy, I got a barber. I will deal with the halachot. The rabbi will explain the halachot to you. And he changed his clothes. From here, the Rishonim learned, the Haskuni says, from this we have a custom that before Rosh Hashanah comes, Shulchan Aruch says, Mr. Perim, we take a shave and we change our clothes. The earliest source is Yosef HaSaddik. That happened on Rosh Hashanah. Oh, so now already I'm happy. There's a connection between Yetziat Mitzrayim and Rosh Hashanah, which means that begins our exodus on a personal level. First it has to happen to the tzaddik Yosef, and then what happens to Yosef eventually will happen to the Jewish people. We always teach you, Ma'aseh Avot, Siman Labanim. First it has to happen in the Avot level, and then it transcends to the Banim. So Yetziat Mitzrayim in its origins happens on that day, when Yosef leaves the prison. So we have no problem to say, Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Furthermore, says the Shibbolei HaLeket, V'gam, Batla Avodah Me'avotenu B'Mitzrayim B'yom Hazeh. On that day, Rosh Hashanah, 200 years later, that's the day the Jewish people stopped working. That means we received a stop order. No more work. Now, we didn't leave until 6 months later on Pesach. But the Avodah came to a cessation on Rosh Hashanah, which is a great day for us. Look at the beauty. The same anniversary that Yosef in the micro leaves the prison is the same day that the Jewish people in the macro are freed. Yosef actually said it to the Jewish people when he told them before he passed away, Pakod Yifkod. What's this double language? Pakod Yifkod Elohim. God will remember you. He will remember and he will remember. Says the Mefarshim, he will remember you on the same day he remembered me. God remembered me on the Yom HaPekidah, Yom HaZikaron. I was freed out of prison. You're going to be redeemed on the same day, many years from now. So be prepared. Already Yosef was telling them it's going to be, they're going to share the same anniversary. Pakod Yifkod. I'm thrilled. Now I have found a legitimate connection between Rosh Hashanah and Yetziat Mitzrayim. But now I have a reverse question. My question now is, it's not mentioned enough. Just one line, Zechel Yetziat Mitzrayim. We should have a Haggadah Shel Rosh Hashanah. We should have a song to sing about it. Which is, why does this great day, where things that happen on Rosh Hashanah did not happen on Pesach, so therefore it should have some mention. I never heard a rabbi get up on Rosh Hashanah talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim. Why not? Maybe I'm doing it now. I believe that it's underspoken about. It's underdeveloped. But then I said, wait. It's got to be mentioned somewhere. Zechel Yetziat Mitzrayim is too small of a recognition for such a great day. Yosef comes out of prison by the Tzum and Abor. The Jewish people were free. Whenever you want to find the secret of a holiday, look in the Mizmor. The Mizmor of the holiday. That's the Mizmor of Tehillim that we begin the Hag with. Every holiday has a Mizmor. The theme of the holiday is in the Mizmor. In every pasuk, there's a connection between the holiday. If we have to study it, bi'ayun. Now, the one we read for Rosh Hashanah, you should know it. We read it every Thursday. Lam naseh ya halagi ti'it le'asaf, haninu le'elohim ozenu, hariu le'elohei Yaakov. Now, I know why we chose that one. Because it says, tik'u b'chodesh shofar, v'kiseh liyom hagen. Torah says, take out the shofar and blow it. When should you blow it? Makeseh. In the month that the moon is hiding. Usually our holidays are in the 15th of the month, where the moon is full. Rosh Hashanah, the moon is still concealed. It's a new month. So, tik'u b'chodesh shofar. Which chodesh? Makeseh. Leyom hagenu. So that was the perfect. But then if you read a few pasukim later, what does it say? Edut bihosef samo. בסתו על ארץ מצרים, שפת לא ידעתי, אשמע. It talks about a man. Maybe you never heard of this man. His name is Yehosef. You ever hear of Yehosef? Strange. But David talks about him. Edut bihosef samo. בסתו על ארץ מצרים. When he left over Egypt, שפת לא ידעתי. He says, I didn't know any languages. Ishma, I will learn. I'm going to tell you once and for all, let's learn what this pasuk means. We're going to say it on Rosh Hashanah. Who is Yehosef? What does it mean? Beseto al eres Mitzrayim. What is the story with his language? Hachamim tell us in Gemara Sotah Lamid Yosef is in prison for 10 years, and then there was an additional 2 years. 12 years. All of a sudden, the night of Rosh Hashanah, who visits him in prison? The Malach Gabriel. Baruch haba. Gabriel the Malach. He says, listen, Yosef, I have inside information. Tomorrow, they're going to bring you out of prison. How do you know? How do I know? I'm Malach. I know from Shemayim already. But we have a problem. Paro is only impressed by people that are linguists, that know language. He is the greatest linguist in the world. He speaks 70 languages. And therefore, when you're going to meet him, he's going to talk to you in different languages. And to impress him, you have to know how to answer. He sits on a throne, and the throne has 70 steps. And every time you answer him in a different language, you rise a step. And you'll have more status in his eyes if you can speak language. Yosef, how many languages do you understand? One, Lashon HaKodesh, that's the only language. What other language do you understand? Pick Latin, one language we understand, finish. So he said, no, we have to teach you the languages. So he starts to teach, okay, we're going to start now at the Chinese, and then we're going to go to what they speak in the Congo, and then we're going to speak Swahili. But Yosef said, I can't remember. How are you going to teach me 70 languages in one night? Even Rosetta Stone cannot do that in one night. So Gabriel says, wait, I have a trick. if I could add a letter here to your name, that's a holy letter here, your brain now will become like a magnet, and we can download 70 languages. So on that night of Rosh Hashanah, Yosef went from becoming Yosef to Yehosef. New name. And all of a sudden, bing, he gets the 70 languages. Now he comes the next day to Paro, Vayritzum on board, nice suit, clean shaven. Yosef sees him, Paro sees him at the bottom, Shalom Aleikum, very nice. Walks up the next step, buongiorno, and so on and so forth. And they go all the way over here until they get to the top step. Now they get to the top step. Paro doesn't know any more languages, but there's the 71st language, Lashon HaKodesh. So Yosef tells Paro, Shalom Aleichem, ma shlomcha? Paro doesn't know. So Yosef doesn't know. He says, ta hamor gadol. Hamor, yirbu hamorim kemotcha b'Yishmael. He doesn't speak the language. So he was impressed. Paro said, actually, you should be the king. You know more languages than me. That's why Yosef would always have blackmail of Paro. Paro was scared of Yosef because he knew that if he wanted to, he could show him that he's more worthy to be the king than Paro. Now we understand the pasuk. Edut, this is Rosh Hashanah. Edut, Bihosef. Yosef on that night became Yehosef. Beseto, when he left prison. And then on that night of Rosh Hashanah, when he came in front of the king, he didn't leave Mitzrayim. Beseto al. He became the king over Egypt. And Yosef says, Sefat lo yadati. I didn't know any languages. However, Ishma, I learned. Gabriel taught me. So actually, the story of Yosef leaving the prison is mentioned front and center in the Mizmor. What's the next pasuk? Hasiroti misevel shechmo. You know what sevel is? Sevel is the burden. The Jewish people in Mitzrayim had burdens on their shoulders. Like it says in the pasuk, Ve'hotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim. The sevel is the burdens. On Rosh Hashanah, Hasiroti. God says, I removed. Hasiroti misevel shechmo. God took the burdens off our shoulders. Kapav, our palms. Midud. Dud is the cauldron where we make the cement and the bricks. Kapav, midud, ta'avorna. On that day, we were set free. So, it's not enough that it's mentioned in the Amidah. It's actually in the Mizmor. And if you look at the Rashi on the Mizmor, where he says, Edut Yosef Samor Rashi, I'm quoting now. Berosh Hashana Yatsa Yosef Bebet Asurim. So he quotes exactly the Gemara as well. I also found a great rabbi called Radak. Radak is Rabbi David Kimchi. He's one of the Hakmei Provincia from the south of France, a great tzaddik. He wrote a commentary on Tanakh. And on this chapter, he says something amazing. Many years ago, on school trip, they took us to Philadelphia. Over there, they came to show us the Liberty Bell. Maybe you heard about the Liberty Bell? This, I think, was a gift given to us in 1776. And it represents the freedom of the, of the American people from the tyranny of the, of the kings that were ruling over them, from, I guess, England or whatever it may be. The famous Liberty Bell. Now there's a crack right across. It wasn't me. I didn't crack it. So maybe some of my friends were pranking, but nonetheless, on the Liberty Bell there's a pasuk, and the pasuk says regarding the 50th year of Jubilee. That's the year where slaves are set free, and it says in English the pasuk from Leviticus, and they will blow the shofar in the 50th year, and all slaves b'shavtem ish l'chozato v'ish l'mishpato tashuvu. The Liberty Bell represents a bell, a ring that frees the slaves. And where did they get that idea from? From the Torah. When you blow a shofar in the Jubilee year, that's a symbol, all slaves go free. Says Rabbi David Kimchi. That's why we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Because on Rosh Hashanah, the Jews were set free from Egypt. and Yosef left the prison, and therefore the shofar, according to the Radak, is a liberty bell. It's a bell that symbolizes the freedom of Avodah. So it turns out, I mean, I don't want to turn Rosh Hashanah into Pesach, but it turns out that it's in the Amidah, it's in the Mizmor, and according to the Radak, that's one of the main reasons why we blow shofar. לפיכך שם זה החוק שהוא תקיעת שופר לזכר ביטול העבודה שהיה ביום הזה. Incidentally, Rabbi Sa'adya Gaon, who brings 10 reasons for Tikiyat Shofar, brings this reason as well, to symbolize the freedom. Good. Listen, we didn't say anything yet. This is just a hakdama that I have to prove that Rosh Hashanah is connected to Yetziat Mitzrayim. Well, I rest my case. Now we can get to the main event. The Maharsha. Gemara, Rosh Hashanah, Daf Yud Aleph. This is an amazing Maharsha. He asks a question that I would never ask. But he has a question. He says, Yehosef. He went from Yosef to Yehosef. So he asks, where did they get the hair from? I don't understand the question. Where did they get the hair from? It's not the Wheel of Fortune. You have to buy a vowel over here. They got the hair. Where they got it from? You need to have a sponsor to get the hair? They wrote it. They got it. I don't know what you don't have to have a word bank where you go withdraw a hair. But he says, where did the hair come from? The question is surprising to me, but his answer is even more shocking. Now, I see you don't have seat belts on these seats over here, so please hold on to the railing because I don't want Hashem anybody to fall off their seats. אותה ה' שנטלה משרה שנפקדה בראש השנה נתוספה בו בראש השנה ליוסף. He says, do you know where the hair came from? The hair came from Sarah. Sarah Imenu had a hair in her name. So he says the hair was transplanted from Sarah and it went to Yosef and he becomes Yosef. I spent a lot of time trying to understand this Maharsha. What do you mean it came from Sarah? Sarah needs the hair for her own name. I mean, if you take it from Sarah and give it to Yosef, then she becomes Sarah. So you can't take a letter from somebody's name and give it to somebody else when it's going to impact their own name. I mean, she needs it. She cannot sponsor it. She needs it for herself. But that's what he says. So we have to figure out what he means. Now, once he's asking this question, where the hair of Yosef came, I want to ask another question that he doesn't ask. Where did the hair of Sarah come from? Once you're asking already, so we can ask on all the tzaddikim. Her name, by the way, was Sarai. Where did the hair come from? So who sponsored that hair? So I saw go down in Sefarim something amazing. You ever have a $10 bill and you want to get change? So when you break a $10 bill, how do you break it? 2 5s. Says the Mefarshim, she had a yud. So they broke the yud into 2 hairs. She got 1 hair, and the other hair she transported to Yosef to become Yehosef. Hadushim. Who would have thought that? Now, I know you're going to ask me, wait, I thought the yud of Sarah went to Yoshua. Listen, Rabotai, I read an essay this week, 14 pages, trying to reconcile all these letters flying all over the place. Who exactly got what? How did they break it? Who ended up with... But suffice it to say, Sarah and Yosef are connected. The letter of Sarah, Yud, half of it went to Yosef. That means they have a, and I know what the connection is. Sarah conceived on Rosh Hashanah, and Yosef went out of prison on Rosh Hashanah. But then the Maharsha says something according to the Kabbalah, which is hadush to me, because the Maharsha usually explains the Gebariyot al pi pshat. But then he comes along and he says, ועל דרך הסוד, סוד, כי ההא האחרונה שבשם היא מורה על מידת המלכות. Okay, little introduction. You know Hashem's name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke. So every letter of Hashem's name Yud-Ke Vav-Ke represents something. The Yud represents the Keter. It's the highest level. And as you move down, the He represents Bina, the Vav represents the Sefirot. When you get to the final He, maybe in your Sidurim, you'll see sometimes the He, inside of it, it says Adanut. In the He itself, it says Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. The Maharsha says the He of the Shem Yud-Ke Vav-Ke represents the kingdom of God. It's Malchut. And when is the kingdom of God manifest itself? When is the kingdom of God inaugurated every year? When is the ceremony where we re-inaugurate the king? Rosh Hashanah. And since he says Yosef had a connection to Rosh Hashanah, he gets a hair because it's connected to the Malchut. And Sarah also, she got pregnant on Rosh Hashanah, connected to the hair's Malchut. Now watch. Once we got to this level that we see there's a connection between the tzaddikim, Sarah Imenu, Yosef HaTzaddik, I revealed to you the secret of what the Gemara says in Berachot, the way a person is supposed to pray. The way a person is supposed to pray is the following. Again, for results. This is now strategy I'm giving you. Gemara says in Berachot, Modeh al ha'avar v'tzo'ek la'atid. When a person comes to pray, he must always begin his prayers by reflecting on the past. I know when we come on Rosh Hashanah, right away we're looking forward. Forget about the past. Past things. We got to go forward. Shana Tova, Techle Shalom Kedoteha, Ta'an Shalom B'Rekoteha. We're already looking forward. The Gemara says no. Before you look forward, you must give gratitude on the past. You cannot come with a whole list and say, well, next year I want this and this. Hey, what happened to all the stuff you got last year? So the Gemara says, Modeh al ha'avar. You pay gratitude for the past, what you received. V'tzo'ek, and then you can scream and cry and supplicate la'atid labo, for the future. Says the Tiferet Shlomo, when a person prays like that, you get results. You know why we don't get results? Because we don't thank for the past. We're too busy looking on the future. Rosh Hashanah, we don't want to miss it. If Tafshin Peh, the calendar moved already. Forget about Tafshin Peh Daleds and Gerizah. No. Modeh al ha'avar, you have to come along. And the problem is, a lot of us had a rough Tafshin Peh Daled. A lot of us are not satisfied with the results and the performance of Tafshin Peh Daled, the year that passed. As a matter of fact, many people, when they come to the new year, they come to God and say, listen, last year wasn't such a good year. I forgive you. But now we're starting a new year. Hashem, you'll do better this year. This is what I need, and let's try to do better. You'll make the shuvah. The people have claims on God. No, when you come into Rosh Hashanah, you cannot have claims. On Rosh Hashanah, the key of the day is, the way I understand it, there's different countries that have monarchs. They recently inaugurated a king in England. So they made big ceremonies. Now to get invited to that ceremony is only the VIPs of the world get invited. They have a king in Morocco. Every year during the summer months, they re-inaugurate the king. You need to be a VIP to be invited to the inauguration ceremony. It's a big rally. And everybody's holding up the picture of the king, and they're clapping, and they're singing. On Rosh Hashanah, we are inaugurating and we are coronating the king, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a rally. And you have to be a VIP to be invited to this. And only the Jews are invited, and the rally takes place in the Bet Knesset. And we come with our mahzor, we come with our shofar, but most important, when you come to the rally, when you're nominating the king, you have to come with a smile. The prophet Ezra said, Hedvat Hashem, you have to come with joy. Imagine somebody comes to a rally of a president, like they have today, and he's in front of the president's speaking, there's Za'alan, it's based on Shabi Abi. They say, what are you doing over there? What are you doing? Go to the Democrats then. What are you standing over here for? You came to the wrong rally. You're upset? By the way, be very careful. If somebody comes to the coronation ceremony and he's upset, it's dangerous. The Zohar, Mekubalim tell a story. Somebody once came, in the times of Rabbeinu Ari, they came to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on Lag BaOmer, a big rabbi. And everybody's singing and dancing, Hilulav Rashbi. And this rabbi was a big tzaddik. He started to sit on the floor and made tikkun hatzot. And he's crying. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai comes to Arizal and says, who's this guy over here? He's ruining my party. On the day that everybody's coming to rejoice, he's on the floor crying. Tell him he's in big trouble. The big tzaddik, he didn't finish the year. That's what happens when you come to the tzaddik's party and you ruin it. Party pooper. So now we're coming to God's party. And you got an invitation. And you're sitting in the front row. He sees everybody. And you come there and you have all upset that last year. What a terrible year I got. All right, listen, we'll give you another chance. That's your attitude? Boreolam said, don't come to my party then. Who asked you? Who asked you to come over here with claims? The key of having a successful year, says the prophet, Hedvat Hashem, you have to be satisfied and you have to be acquiescent and pleased what happened last year, even though it wasn't necessarily good. Even though it was not necessarily pleasurable. Hodu ladonai ki tov. When a person comes along and looks at the past and says, thank you, whatever you did was good, then God says, good, ki le'olam hasdo. That is able to attract hasadim for the future. But you cannot draw hasadim for the future unless already you're modeh al ha'avar. And even if you weren't happy with the avar, you cannot come to the party and God said, what is he thinking in his brain? He has claims against me? And I am sure nobody had the perfect year last year. I know as a nation we didn't have a perfect year. We had one of the most difficult years in Klal Yisrael's history last year as a nation. And personally, I'm sure we struggled. This with parnasa, and this with health, and this with zivugim, and this with fertility. We don't have to go through the list. On Rosh Hashanah, you're supposed to come in front of the king and say, we're renominating you, and we're re-inaugurating you, and we're very thrilled with the results. Hodu Hashem, the king knows. When we nominated you last year, the king, we nominated because we know you have our best interest. And we know you know what's the best for us. And if we have no, God says, you're happy? God says, they're happy with me. Very happy with you. The key of Rosh Hashanah is to reconcile with God last year's Hashbon first. To put away your claims. I am telling you this because a lot of people don't have this attitude. They say, okay, last year it was garbage. Terrible. What are you telling God? Last year was garbage? So God says, that's why they come to the ceremony? They come to the president and say, listen, the last 4 years, the worst 4 years. But okay, take 2, we'll try again. Who needs such a voter? Better you stay at home and not come and spoil it. Modeh al avar. Rosh Hashanah, you have to come to terms that everything that Hashem did for us in Tafshin Peh Daled was tov. And that's how you have to start the service. Ki tov. ועל כולם יתברך ויתרום וכל החיים יודו חסלה. We thank you for תשפ"ה. Once we do that, then you can say, וכתוב לחיים טובים for תשפ"ה. Now watch. Sarah Imenu. She didn't have a good life. She had a very difficult life. This is a lady that was abducted twice. She was taken into captivity by 2 kings. She was barren for 90 years. That means for 90 Rosh Hashanahs, she came to the inauguration ceremony. No children. Hagar is married to Abraham. One day, boom, child. And you know what the Pasuk says regarding Sarah's attitude to her life? Kulam shavim letovah. They were all good. She had no claims. God says, you accepted my kingdom b'ratzon. You deserve the letter He in your name. The He is Malchut. She didn't just get the letter. She earned the letter. You have to earn that letter He. The fact that 90 years she comes on Rosh Hashanah, Ulam shavim letovah. I'm good. What do you mean you're good? You got kidnapped this year. That's good. Hashem knows what He's doing. She doesn't come on Rosh Hashanah with Shabbat face. And she bequeathed that attitude to Yosef. I want to ask you a question. Yosef is in Egypt. He gets a job for Potiphar. Potiphar's wife, Zolicha. Every day she's seducing Yosef. Yom Yom. Yosef was very handsome. This Zolicha, it says, in the morning she would wear one outfit. In the afternoon she would change. And then in the afternoon, before dinner, she changed again. She changed her clothes 3 times a day. Some of the ladies have this custom even till today. But the point is, Yom Yom. And Yosef is resisting the temptation. 17 years old. Finally, Vayike Hayom Hazeh. Nobody's in the house. And she already solicits him explicitly. Shechva in me. She grabs him. Yosef jumps out the window. On that day, Yosef's name becomes Yosef HaSadiq. What he did, he overcame something that was humanly impossible. I want to ask you a question. A man does such a mitzvah. What do you think the reward for such a man is going to be? Yosef's probably thinking to himself, how much did I make Hashem happy today? You know where he slept that night? In jail. Now, if you're Yosef, you have to scratch your head and say, what's going on over here? I just did the greatest mitzvah. And he didn't sleep in jail for one night. It's not like 24 hours and he called the governor and they gave him, he called the Shomrim and the Jewish activists to get him out of it. There's no Jewish activists in Mitzrayim. They're all anti-Semites. And he spends 12 Rosh Hashanahs in jail. And Yosef comes every Rosh Hashanah in jail. Hashem, I have no problem. I'm very happy. I nominate you again. The God that put me in jail and punished me and did all this, there's no better king. The king is the best king in the world. I accept. How do I know this? Because when they took him out of jail, what does it say? Vayritzuhu min abor. Vayritzuhu says the Mikubalim, Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen says, it's not that they rushed him out, milashon ratz. Milashon ratzon. Vayritzuhu. Yosef was filled with acquiescence. Yosef was filled, he was pleased with God. But look what I did for you for the past 12 years. You're God, you have to answer to me. God says, you know something? You remind me of Sarah. You deserve the letter He. You accepted my kingdom b'ratzon. That's malchut. You get a He also. You earned the He. Edut bi Yosef Shamo. That's what we're mentioning them on the holiday. Not to only mention what happened to them, but how they reacted to what happened to them. Before it happened. They lived with total acceptance of the decree of God. And therefore, that's Malchut. And guess what? When the Jewish people came out of Mitzrayim, on the same day, Vayritzuhu min abor. That's the Ratzon of Yosef. What do we say in Ra'u Banim every night? Ra'u Banim et Gibrato. Shebechu behudu l'shu malchuto beratzon. The Jewish people accepted the 210 years of slavery. That means in Egypt for 210 years, every Rosh Hashanah they got up and said, Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach. There's no better king. You have to thank God even during the difficult times. And then we can anticipate the better times will come. But if we have claims that the king doesn't know how to manage, then how dare us come along and ask us for better things in the future? Our relationship with the king has to be unconditional. So wait, Sarah has a hair, Yosef has a hair, the Jewish people, well, on the night of Pesach when we say Haggadah, we start hair lahma anya, hair, the Jewish people have a hair. Rachel Imenu. She had a very difficult life. This is a lady that was the primary wife of Yaakov, that becomes a second wife because of a ruse that Laban did on the night of the wedding. She finally marries Yaakov only to become barren. And Leah is pulling out children, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, and then the maids are having children. And Rachel, Akara. Could you imagine? Every Rosh Hashana, Rachel comes in front of the king. There's no claims. And all of a sudden, she says, you know what? I guess I'm not going to have children. Take my maidservant. Her maidservant's name was Bilhah. Bilhah has a baby, Dan. I want to talk about the second baby. The second baby was called Naphtali. Anybody know why he was called Naphtali? To me, that's the most difficult of all the Shevatim. Reuven, okay, Reu, Shimon, Shama, Levi, Levaya, Yehuda, Todah. All the Shevatim, their names are easy. Somebody tell me, what does Naphtali mean? I have no idea. Naphtali. Without your hands, tell me what Naphtali means. What is this? What is this word? Huh? I don't know. The Malbim says it. Who named Naphtali Naphtali? Rachel, not Bilhah. He says there's a Hebrew word that's called patil. Naphtali, the root of Naphtali is patil. Samid patil. You know what samid patil is? If you have a cup, and the cup is not a clear cup, it's an earthenware cup, and you put a seal on top of the cup. That seal is called a patil. Now it's hermetically sealed on top, and you can't see the contents that are inside. The word Naphtali actually means concealment. If we had to give an English name for Naphtali, according to the Malbim, his name was hidden, covered. Why would she call him Naphtali? רוצה לומר, העניינים שביני ובין אחותי. Look at the difference between my life and my sister Leah. She has such a good life. Now look at my life. מדוע ילדה היא ולא אנוכי? Why is she having so many children and I don't have any? יש בזה נפתולי אלוהים. This to me is the secrets of God. היינו סודות אלוהים ודברים נעלמים, hidden items מכוסים מעין בשר. I cannot understand. It's God's business. I have no questions. And she says, although it's נפתולי אלוהים, גם יכולתי. I could tolerate it. Ve'esbol. I could tolerate it b'simcha, with joy. You know why? Ki tzaddik Adonai v'yashar mishpatav. Because God is a means Rachel, who is barren, and she's watching her maidservant have children for her husband. You know what she says? Ani mekabel b'simcha. En li shum ta'anot, I have no claims. Tzaddik Adonai. She deserves a hair, but she doesn't have a hair in her name. Says the Mekubalim, that's why Bilhah has two hairs. One for her and one for Rachel. Because she accepted the Malchut of Hashem b'simcha when it was dark. And when you accept the Malchut, when it doesn't go your way, then Borei Olam brings you Yeshua. Yeshua has to come first through darkness. On Rosh Hashanah, we have to reconcile Tafshin Pei Dalet first. Not to come in and say, it will be a better year, last year stunk, well, it was terrible, we got gypped, that's the wrong attitude. What are you telling the king? He doesn't know how to run the nation. What are you telling the king? He's a bad president? He doesn't know what he's doing? The tzaddikim come, u'malchuto beratzon. Yosef comes on, vayitzu min habor. That's the oteh. Atem nitzavim hayom. Anytime the Zohar says, it says the word hayom, hayom is Rosh Hashanah. Why? Hayom, the hair, that's the day of Malchut. And Malchut represents accepting it. Well, I have good news for our congregation. Now that you learned the attitude, these events didn't happen only to tell us that it's a good luck day, but to tell us the way these people had attitude on Rosh Hashanah. They accepted their lot, and that's why things got better for them. But in the current events, Yosef came out of prison on Rosh Hashanah. Yosef represents Mashiach ben Yosef. And the Arizal says, it's Targum Unkelus, in Yeshaya Perek Yud Aleph. It says there's going to be a struggle between Mashiach ben Yosef and his arch enemy. The arch enemy of Mashiach ben Yosef is Armilos. We actually pray that Armilos should not kill Mashiach ben Yosef. Who's Armilos? Arasha. And the pasuk says in Yeshaya, Ubruach sefatav yamit rasha. There's going to come a day, we hope, that Mashiach ben Yosef will be able to bring down Armilos Rasha. The numerical value of Armilos, the numerical value is 437. The exact gematria of Nasrallah. Who knows? Maybe right before Rosh Hashanah, on the day that Yosef came out of Beta Asurim, that's the ascendancy of Mashiach ben Yosef. And now we were able to bring down, so he changed his plan from the other beepers. He got Verizon, but it didn't help him. He still. But my lesson to the congregation is very, very simple. Hoda'ah la'avar. And that's Hakam Enav Berosho. Hakam Enav Berosho is the Hakam's eyes on Rosh Hashanah are not only looking forward, but the eyes on Rosh Hashanah have to look back first. You have to reflect backwards, and you have to say to yourself, Hashem, I don't have, it was a good year. It was a good year. Tafshin was a good year. What do you mean good year? Look at good year. Every year is a good year. The king is the best king. And next year will be also a good year. It'll be a better year also. We have no problem. But to come to the inauguration b'simcha, u'malchuto berason kibbelu aleim. And that's the key. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov. First we have to be modeh la'avar. And then already tzo'ek la'atid lavo. And that's why we mention these events. Yetziat Mitzrayim, Yosef b'Beta Asurim, Rachel, Sarah, they're all connected. Not only because of the events that happened, but we're connecting the attitudes of these people. That they lived a life that were kulam shavim letovah. And this year, Baruch Hashem, we're going from a year that ends with a Dalid, Tafshin Pei Dalid, to a year that ends with a He. Tafshin Pei He is the year of the Malchut. Be'ezat Hashem, like we say, Galeh kevod malchutcha alenu mehera vehofa behinnaseh v'yeda kol pa'ul ki ata pe'alto v'yavin kol yesur ki ata yisato v'yomar kol asher neshama be'apo Adonai Elohei Yisrael malach u'malchuto b'shana. Amen. Ken yehi ratzon. Amen.